I have a 2004 Subaru Forester XT that I will be doing as a leak down test today. It has a pretty bad misfire, so we're just ruling out that it's, a head gasket or valves or even a bad cylinder or piston or something. So it's pretty straightforward. Not too many tools that you need. Something to remove spark plugs. Helps to have the right length of extensions and maybe even a swivel. A couple 12 millimeters. One thing that's necessary is I use a 7/8 just because I have it, or you can use a 22 millimeter, and that's to put over the crank bolt to rotate the engine, as you'll need to get it to top dead center for each cylinder. The biggest thing though is the Leakdown tester itself, as well as an air compressor. And then one other thing that I like to have is just a rod of some sort. So I use this to find top dead center, and I'll show you how to do that a little bit later. You can really use anything. Coat hanger, just make sure it's long enough and doesn't get lost in the cylinder. And definitely be careful with it as not to scratch anything up. So this car, the airbox has already been removed. You want to remove the battery and the reservoir. Once you have all the spark plugs out, time to find top dead center for, well, all of the cylinders. So I'll go ahead and start with cylinder 1. You're going to want a 22 or a 7/8 for the crank bolt. Now, one thing that's rather important, especially on automatic cars, is they don't have the belt, the little timing belt guard that the manuals do. You don't want to reverse it, so don't go, what would that be, counterclockwise. So even if you have to go all the way around again, that's better than potentially slipping a tooth on a timing belt and not knowing until you fire it up the next time, and potentially bending valves or other damage. So I'm actually going to use this bolt. This isn't as ideal as like a piece of wire, like a clothes hanger wire that you trimmed. One thing to not use is don't use anything that could break off inside the cylinder. So like telescoping magnets, I've seen those pull apart before. You don't want to use those little 1/4 inch bit drivers stacked, because though they might seem like the right size, if you get anything stuck in the cylinder, you're kind of out of luck. So I'm gonna use this, and I'm gonna mind the threads that I'm not galling the aluminum threads. So what I'll do is I'm going to stick it into the spark plug hole, making sure absolutely to not lose it. And then it would be pretty hard on this one to lose. And then from there, I'm going to twist the motor over, and eventually you'll feel the piston pushing whatever piece of metal you're using back up to top dead center. Okay, so I feel it now, and I don't know if you can see that at all, but you essentially want to twist the motor over very slowly as you feel it coming out. And even if you have to turn it over 5 times to make sure it's absolutely perfect, it's worth the time spent. So okay, so see there, I don't know if you can see, but it's now on its downstroke. I'm not going to apply any pressure for a moment, but just keeping my finger there to feel for when it comes back around. Okay, so I feel it. You can see my middle finger here. That's what's on top of the bolt. So once that is top dead center, okay, now it's going back down. So don't worry about this. You're learning to feel exactly where it is. Going around again. Oh, going a little fast there. So this is both a feel thing and a visual thing. If you can feel it stop moving, or if you can see it, which this bolt's too short to actually see. So right there, I kept twisting and it stopped moving, so I feel like that is top dead center. And again, if it takes you 10 tries, don't worry about it, just keep going. So, well, the piston is at top dead center. It might not actually be top dead center for cylinder 1. It might be 180 degrees out, meaning while the piston's at the top, I believe the exhaust valves are open, meaning your leak down test, all the air will go out the exhaust, and you'll think your motor's blown or something to that effect. So it may be 180 degrees out, and here's why it doesn't matter a ton at the exact moment. I'm going to pull this off, get a paint marker, and that's actually pretty tight down there. Here, I'll mark it first and then I'll show the camera. We're essentially going to have to do this twice. One for the first bank, one for the second bank of cylinders. The reason is, being a boxer motor and the firing order and whatnot, the first bank, so cylinders 1 and 2, will always be at the same position. So when cylinder 1 is at top dead center, at least the piston, cylinder 2 will also be. But then the 3 and 4 will be at the innermost, so where the piston is bottom dead center. So even if we are 180 degrees out, that's okay. A little tough to see. I made a little mark, so I know that, and I made it on both the timing cover and the pulley. So if for some reason it is 180 degrees out, what I need to do is just twist the whole thing 180 degrees, keeping track of that. And then once I get to that little mark again, I know I'll be true top dead center for, excuse me, whichever cylinder I'm on. Just because it is kind of a pain to remove the hose to the leak down test. From there, make sure that you have your bolt out and accounted for. Next, you're going to want to get the leak down tester out. So this has 2 gauges. I'll explain how to use that in a moment here. It'll come with a hose like such. And this can be a little tricky. Just keep trying. You'll get it eventually. Essentially, you are going in blind, hoping the threads will catch. If you feel it cross-threading, definitely retry. So stick the hose in. And what I do is I guide it with this hand down here, and then I'll do the twisting with kind of both hands. And occasionally I'll just kind of pull backwards just to see if it caught. And just do the angle and whatnot. It's tricky, but usually it goes in pretty semi-quick. And so, again, you can adjust the angle with this hand down here. Sometimes it needs to go way down. And you just kind of try to keep whatever is in the cylinder head straight as you can. So if it's not catching, you can kind of pull it out and readjust. Hopefully the camera's catching this. Okay. I think I caught, nope. Don't get frustrated, this takes a while sometimes. Just keep twisting. So one time I was doing this, and just no matter what I did, it would not catch. I was probably there for probably 20 minutes, honestly. Just trying and trying and trying. Eventually, I'm like, I think something is wrong. So I feel down there, and sure enough, the spark plug was still in. So felt a little stupid, pulled it out, and it went right in. It's not in, but it's caught, as you can see. Give it a little tug, won't come out. It should twist freely a few more times. If it's not twisting freely, right off the bat, you're probably cross-threading. And then restart. Give it a little bit of a tighten, not too much. All right, that's in. We'll do that in there. If I all your tools. One thing I can't stress enough, make sure, it's tempting to leave this on the pulley because sometimes it's a little annoying to get it on there. Make sure you pull any tool off of that, basically remove it. So what happens is sometimes if you're not fully at top dead center, the force of the air will actually force the cylinder back down pretty violently, and it will launch any tools, might even break stuff, might injure you. So whatever you do, take any tools off of that. Otherwise, I warned you. Okay, so air compressor, make sure it's at least 100. I just set mine to max. And you can go lower if you're, depending on your thing, you may have a cheat sheet on what pressures mean what. But with this, you can actually control the pressure. Alright, so now that you have everything hooked up, you can go ahead and start applying pressure. Again, make sure there's nothing on the crank pulley, no wrench or socket or anything. And now we'll find out if it's 180 degrees out or not. So start twisting. So this is the pressure going in, this is the cylinder pressure. So likely we are, as you can see, I'm already up to 25 or so, and this is barely cracked. You can actually hear quite a bit of air coming out. That can indicate two things: bad cylinder or 180 degrees out. So this method, there's a little bit of trial and error, but this is an easier way of verifying, I guess. So make sure that you release all the pressure, nothing applying to the cylinders. Let's go ahead and turn it 180 degrees. Get that on there. So I'm going to keep an eye on the purple dots that I added. Now, I don't know if the camera sees those or not, but okay, so they're coming around. And I added a couple on accident, so just to be sure, keep a real close eye on it. Okay, so that is 180 degrees. So again, remove any wrench you have on the crank pulley, and we're still hooked up, so we can try this again. Okay, see, they're about matching, so that's a lot better. So you want to put it all the way to 100 on the pressure side. I guess they're both pressure sides, but so get it right to 100. Okay, so this is about 97. I'm going to say 97. Okay. So let's relieve the pressure. All right, so now this will have a little chart. And so left hand gauge reading, we used 100 psi, and then this is for what the right hand gauge read. So add 100 psi for the left, we got 97 on the right, meaning we have 3% leak down. That's actually pretty fantastic, assuming all the others match. So write that down somewhere, take a picture, do whatever it takes to remember that number. I'm going to get a little sticky note and I'll write that down. Okay, so I just ordered it. This is the cylinder order. You have cylinder 1, 2, 3, 4. So 3% there. So you can go ahead and undo this. If you wanted to double check, you could. And especially if it's not reading what you hope for, it's good to maybe double check a couple times. Maybe this isn't seated right and it's leaking air, so you can pull this out, put it back in. It's always worth checking a couple times. All right, so now because we know this is at top dead center, true top dead center, including all the valves closed, we're going to go to cylinder number 2 and check that next. And you can really go in any order, but I just find this is more efficient, as you just basically turn the crank pulley, 180 degrees again, and then from there you have both cylinder 1 and 2. So now this side's definitely more tricky with the wiring harness and slightly tighter on this side. So do what you can, get it in there. And despite being the more tricky side, it grabbed the threads and now threading in. So a little snug, not too tight, doesn't have to be super tight. Bring this over. Look it up, looks like there's a little pressure on there. So we know we're 180 out. This little socket is more difficult today. Make sure that's all lined up. Just barely, I almost overshot it, so glad I didn't. But if I did, no problem. I just go around again, one more full rotation at this point. At this point, we're good to go on the second one. Start twisting. You can see they're both rising at about equal-ish rates. We'll get that to 100. Wow, this one's even better. I would say that's 90, 98 or 99. So, release the pressure. If we want to check out our chart again, we can. At, I don't know if that's focusing or not, at 100 psi on the left gauge, 98 on the right, we have a cylinder leak down of 2%. Now that's rather incredible. So 2%. Clear all your pressures out. Pop this one. And then usually it's comes right out. Alright, so cylinder 1 and 2 we now know are good, which is always a good sign. And usually when you're doing a leak down test, you suspect something is wrong and you're hoping for the worst. So can't say yet, as we're not done with 3 and 4 yet, but we will keep going. So grab your bolt, grab your socket, put it on the crank pulley, stick your bolt down there, hopefully it fits. So hold on to your bolt, make sure not to push it all the way in, don't lose it, or else you're going to have a bad time. So I got my finger on the bolt just lightly, twisting the crankshaft. Okay, now it's coming out, and hopefully we can see that. Okay, now it's stopped. It's going back down, so I'll make another pass, which would be 180. And again, we're not trying to find, the actual top dead center. We're just trying to find the piston. We just want it to be in the top of the cylinder, like as high as it can be. So whether it's true top dead center or not, doesn't quite matter. So I feel it again, going real slow. Okay, I think that's it right there. pull out your stick or your rod or whatever you're using. Remove your socket. And I'm going to do another mark, as cylinder 3 and 4 will be slightly different. And this is pretty tight, so hopefully I get this right. As we already have a mark on the timing cover, so we don't want a second one. So, and just be aware, like my mark is just to the right of it, so I'm gonna have to remember that. Or I could wipe it off and try again, but I'm not gonna do that. Grab our hose wherever that went. Stick it in cylinder 3. And it's definitely not tighter, so. Since you want the hose to be straight when it's going in. With the frame rail in the way is a little tricky. And looks like that caught and giving it a tug and it's not coming out. So now we can tighten that the rest of the way. Okay, so now we'll see again if it's top dead center or not. Alright, so we got lucky this time. The pressures are matching pretty well. Crank it all the way up to 100. Alright, so I'm going to say that's 90, 97 or 98. Which according to our little chart is 2 or 3%. I'm going to say it's closer to 97, so I'll write down 3%. All right, and off to cylinder 4. And Subarus are notorious for cylinder 4. It's supposedly it gets the worst cooling. So I guess that's the one to worry about. Save the best for last. Okay, it's cut. Threading. Spin at 180. And just so you don't get confused with your other marks for cylinders 1 and 2, just kind of keep an eye on where they are compared to that. And this one's pretty easy to tell just because I accidentally made a couple marks on cylinder 1 and 2. So see, I don't know if you can see that, but that's where those are. So we'll keep going. And go nice and slow because you can't really see it until right when you're there. Okay, right there. And again, I'll go just due to how my dot is, I'm going just barely past. So don't forget to take your wrench out. All right. There's 100. Wow, this is the best one yet. 90, 99. Okay, and I'm not actually going to release the pressure just yet. So 99 would be 1% leak down, So this is a perfect car. Well, about as perfect as it gets, which is rather impressive because as far as I'm aware, this is the original engine. Completely stock. These are just kind of, red hoses were just kind of temporary. So other than that, completely stock. If you are concerned about a head gasket, what you can do, and it depends on where the head gasket is blown. If, say, you had a head gasket, say cylinder number 3 was bad. If it was a head gasket issue between the cylinders, so say it was leaking between, you could feel and probably hear air coming out of cylinder 1. If you're thinking it's maybe a head gasket issue, you could pop the cap and you might see, because it's pressurized, say it is leaking, you might see bubbles coming out of the radiator cap. Say it's a ring gland, say a ring gland has broken or a piston has broken. One sure way to tell, you can pop your oil cap off and you might be able to hear, or you might have a steady breeze coming out of there. Say it was an intake valve, and this one can be a bit trickier. What you can do is you can pop off, say, the brake booster hose, or say you got the intercooler hose off. You can crack the throttle plate and you can hear maybe a breeze coming out of the intake. Say you put the intake valve. Exhaust valve, same thing. You can actually go to the back of the car and you can listen through the exhaust, and if you hear a steady breeze coming out the tailpipe, you know, burnt exhaust valve. And that's kind of the main areas that you'll have issues with, whether it's piston, intake, exhaust valve, or head gasket. And that's kind of where you check, say you're kind of diagnosing what may the issue be. Fortunately for us, near perfect leak down. In fact, I've never seen anything this perfect. My own personal cars are probably not within spec to what most people would want, but you know, they say a mechanic's car is the car you should trust the least. So anyway, that's how you do a leak down test. There's, I think, the biggest help and the biggest trick, especially if you're not really familiar with finding top dead center. A lot of the V8 guys will put their finger, you know, over the spark plug hole, and they'll feel, I don't remember the exact sequence, but you can either feel it suck, or you can feel like when the air is released, and at some point, that's when you know that all the valves are sealed and the piston's at the top. I don't quite remember, and obviously a Subaru, with how recessed the spark plug holes are, that's not possible anyway. So I think the biggest trick while doing this is the little paint marks on your crankshaft pulley, and even if you have to rotate it a couple times, you at least know where top dead center is for 2 cylinders at a time, and that makes it really quick and easy.